Where would characters be without props and backgrounds? Well, I'll tell you. Floating in space like this guy here. They need props and backgrounds to make it all make sense. Look, he's holding nothing in his hand. So let's put an ice cream cone in there. And if you notice, just by doing that, his whole expression changed. He's happy about that. And that little dot will leave like that and put a whistle. Little musical note. And what else? Let's put a shadow line right here and a line like this behind him. And that looks like he's walking on the pavement. Some dots there, some lines, and a fence. And notice the points of the fence get a little smaller in the distance, and that's called perspective, and we'll get to that in a moment. And some trees, and it goes on, but that's all we'll do for now. Hi, I'm Bruce Blitz, and welcome to Cartooning with Blitz, and that's what we'll be doing today, creating props and backgrounds. And for our feature of the day, a great cartooning gag that I won't tell you the surprise ending. You'll have to stay tuned for that. You'll like this one. And for our doodle trick, name tunes. Not name that tune, name tunes. Finished cartoons from names. So stay tuned for that one. I know you'll like it. Let's go back and let's learn some basics of the 4 basic forms. And I'll start with them because everything stems from those. And we'll talk about shading and things like that. So let's start with the sphere. Now, sphere is a ball shape. Yeah, it's pretty round. That worked out pretty good. Okay. Let's pretend that the light source is coming from this direction. Now, very simply, folks, doesn't get very complicated. If the light source is coming from up here, the side furthest from the light is the darkest. And that's the end of that. Doesn't get more tricky than that. And it makes sense, doesn't it? If it's not seeing the light, it's going to be darker. Now, this is a rounded object, which means that the color is gradually going to get darker as it gets away from the light. Now, that's the first step. Now, for a cast shadow, and a cast shadow is, that comes out of the side, that is shaded. And what it is, it's an elongated version of the object itself. And it takes on the shape on which it falls. In this case, the flat table, so there you have it. Okay, that's the sphere, and you'll see how that comes into play in a couple minutes. Now we're going to do the cube. Now the cube is a little bit different. The cube is flat planes that come together to form a box, right? It's not rounded like the sphere, is it? Now, what we're going to do now is take another color, use blue. Now, if the light source is coming from up here again, just like in the sphere, this side here will be the one that you would shade. That's the side that's not seeing any light, is it? Because that is completely away from the sun. Now, if you notice, where flat planes come together, right where they're joined, the color is abrupt where it changes, because after on the next side, it's light. You see that? Not rounded like the cube. Now, shading, or the cast shadow, comes from the same side as the shading. And it takes on the shape again. See? I hope you're following along, because there's really nothing more to it than this. Okay? That's the cube. Next, we'll do the cylinder. And the cylinder is another rounded object. And let's do that one right now. And it comes down. And let's shade that one. Let's see. For this one, we'll use green. And if the light's coming from this side again, we'll use some green on this side. Now again, because it's rounded, it will gradually get lighter as it goes towards the light source. The top's very light because that's seeing a lot of the sun. We're light. Now let's shade that one, or cast shadow. And there you have it. And the last one is the cone. And the cone, you think of a lot of objects that start with a cone, I'm sure. Matter of fact, the ice cream cone that we started with today. And again, this is the rounded object. Let me see, what color can I use for this one? Oh, how about a pretty purple? That's pretty. And if the light source is coming from up here, again, it's a rounded object, so we'll start to gradually get lighter. And there you have it. Put some cast shadow in this one too. Again, it's a point. Comes to a point like the top of the cone. And that's it. Now here's the key to drawing. All objects in this world can be broken down to one or a combination of any of these four forms. The sphere, the cube, the cylinder, and the cone. And that's all there is to it. All right, you ready? Now let's draw some props that come from these shapes. Some quickies. Okay, the next one. First one we'll do will be a cup. Regular old cup. Now that's actually a sphere. Now you're going to find that not all objects conform to the exact shape. For instance, this is actually created from the sphere. Now you say, well, what is he talking about? I don't see a ball here. But you know what? If I would have extended this around like this, that's actually a sphere cut in half. And then I was able to make coffee from it. Of course, some cartoon effects and accessories. We have to make it a cup of coffee. Now let's shade this one too. And if the light source is coming from the right-hand side again, we would shade this just like this. So now you're learning. This is how you do it. You can put a cast shadow in this too. Now you've drawn a coffee cup sitting on a table. Okay, let's do another one. And this next one's got a lot of forms in this one object. Let's see, and it's going to be a can of shaving cream. Now what we've got here, that could either be a cylinder or it could be a cone. If it was extended and kept on going, we notice how it's tapering, it would have eventually become a cone. Let's call it a cylinder though, because it's really just a cylinder that's a little bit, goes in on the top a little bit. Okay, now the rest of this shape is obviously a cylinder because it's a can. And let's see, what else? So we've got two cylinders on it, and the stuff coming out of it, the shaving cream, is actually spheres all over it, lots of them. And we're going to shade them accordingly because they're spheres. Now, let's see. Let's call it FOMO. And we'll have a guy's face on it. How's that? With a big chin. He just got shaved. He's very happy. Okay, now let's put some cast shadow on this. Start with that. All right, now let's go back and let's color it in. As I said, we're going to treat the shaving cream as sphere shapes. Now I'm going to use light blue because when you're coloring in something or shading something that's white, completely white, you can use a little light blue and that'll give the illusion, because sometimes it looks like that. Just looks like that, little white tint to it. Snow looks like that. Shaving cream looks like that. A little bit of orange for the can. How about that? And there it is. Prop till you drop. That's what we're doing. Okay, let's do another one. Now this time we're going to use the cube shape. And for this one, I'm going to draw a piano. I like to play piano. So I'm going to draw myself playing the piano. And here's the cube. It's actually a cube. Let's put the top in. This is an upright piano. Not like the big grand pianos. And I'll draw a picture of me playing it. Now we do a show on cartoon portraits, and this is what I would call a real stylized version of me, not a detailed version, but it works. And here's my hand coming in, here's my other hand. And I'm sitting that way. Actually, okay, let's finish the keyboard. Okay, now, cast shadow coming out of this side. And let's shade it. Now, we'll use brown on this one. And if the light's coming from up here again, this side here, remember, gets the darkest value. I'm using chalk to do this. That's how I can cover some large areas. This side here is much lighter because it's seeing a lot of the color, a lot of the light source, so it doesn't have as much deep color. Okay, next, let's learn a classic prop that everybody needs to learn when you're drawing, and that is a tree. Because just about every scene has a tree in it, especially if you're outside. So let's draw a tree, and let's start with, let me see, I'm in a nice brown here. Okay, brown piece of chalk. Now watch what I do. I lay the chalk on its side, and I'm going to apply a little more pressure to the left-hand side, and I'll get a nice crisp line on that side that will gradually get lighter as I do it. So it does the shading all for me as I do it, all by itself. See how it got a little bit lighter, and I'm going to do it again right next to it. And I'm going to use my finger to blend it a little bit, and then over this side, just a plain line. Now I'm going to go back in with my marker, and I'm going to add some detail. And by a little thick and thin hand pressure, I get all this variation in line. Now see what I'm doing here? I'm adding texture to it. I'm going to put a big knot hole right there. And let's see. Now that's all I've got so far. I don't want to put any, I'll use my green for like some grass. Like that. And now for the leaves. Just take some green chalk. Going round and round and round. And as you can see, very simple. Take a marker, and I'm going to accentuate this a little bit. And this side here, this is where the light's coming in, this side here is going to have a little more detail because it's a little more on the shaded side. And I can indicate shading by using some lines next to each other, and that forms a shadow effect. Now, where the leaves are going over the tree trunk, watch this. This is the cast shadow, and this is what's going to make it come a little bit more alive. In here, I do that, and then I gradually make it a little bit lighter, and it looks like it's being shaded by the leaves. That was as easy as 1, 2, 3. So let's do another one, and this time let's do a whole scene, and in this scene we're going to have all kinds of objects in it, and it's going to start with a guy in a canoe. Okay, I think there's a lot of chalk on that marker. I think I'll use another one. There you go. Okay, let's start with a guy in a canoe, and here's the canoe. And now let's draw our friendly fisherman with a fisherman's hat. There he goes. He's happy. He's out for the day on the water. Now, let's put some props into this scene to make it all come alive. First thing we'll do is we'll put a post that's coming out of the water. And the post is really a cylinder shape with some detail. And where the water is, we'll put a couple wavy lines. A line can do a lot of things. Look at that. And let's put a water line behind them. And let's see what else. Mountains. The mountains are cone shapes. And we'll shade them and they'll look great. Okay, what else? Now let's put what shape would you think this is? These are rocks up front. Now what would you say that they conform to? Yep, I would say they're spheres. Now, as I said, they're never going to conform exactly, just because they're not completely round, but you're going to treat them as such. Okay, now let's put some ground line on here, a ground line, and some bushes in the front, and maybe a cabin in the foreground. Windows. and some clouds, and let's see, some reflection effects. Now let's go back in and let's color this in. Use some purple. Of course, that's a cone shape, and the light's coming from upper right, and up here, and there, and some overall tone. But the deepest value is on the darkest value is on the left-hand side, and some water. There you go. And where the cabin is, this side here, it's like the piano. Remember, it's the darkest value, and it gets lighter over there. And let's see, we use some gray for the rocks. And some brown for the post. And there it is. I like that sketch. We didn't color the fella in, but you get the idea. Prop till you drop. Okay, now I'd like to talk a little bit about perspective. Now, don't let perspective scare you. It's hard to say, let alone draw. What it really means is that objects that are the same exact size in reality appear to be different when seen in the distance. If you have my thumb, far away looks smaller than the one close up, when really they're the same size. Do you ever stand in front of a long road and you see how it looks like it's going to a point, when really it never really comes together, but it looks like that in perspective? So let's draw a quick example of that, and this is called one-point perspective. Here's a horizon line, and this part here, that little point, is called the vanishing point. Now, I'm going to make a road. Now, this road could wrap around the world 10 times, and it'll never come together. But when seen in perspective, it seems to come together. Here's the lines in the road. And that's an example of one-point perspective. Here's some mountains in the background, and that's all it is. So don't let perspective scare you. Okay, now I'll show you an example of how that comes in handy for a quick cartoon. Let's draw a superhero cartoon. And here's his face. Here's his confident smile and determined look. And his curly hair. And now his cape. Now watch the perspective here. Here's his shoulder. Here's his forearm. And here is his fist. Now look how large I've drawn his fist. Because this fist here, on his other hand, is much smaller. And here's his emblem. And here's the wraparound. And the reason why I drew it like that is to add a lot more dynamics to the sketch. So let's put a little color into this guy. And by the way, his arms you can treat as sphere shapes. And we shade them accordingly. And a little bit of light peach for his fist. And some red. And oh, that's our superhero. Now to put all this in perspective, I'll play a little music. Now get a sketch pad and look around at the objects in your own living room and break them down to their basic forms, and that's a good way to practice. Next up, the feature of the day. Hi, I'm just drawing a picture of a phone in keeping with the show. It's another prop, and really just starts with a cube shape and a little bit of detail like the buttons for the dialing, and of course a curly cord coming from the receiver into the phone, and some detail up there. And of course, to make a phone ring in cartoon world, what do? You have to write it. So let's write it. R-I-N-G, and of course a nice cartoon effect. Can't believe this. Hello? It works. What? No, we don't deliver pizza. All right, bye. Anyway, this is a neat visual gag, and what you do is you take some paper and you paste it onto a piece of cardboard, and you take some masking tape and roll it up into little balls and put them on the four corners like that, and do what I did. You put it right up here on the pad, and you start to draw it a little bit. Just get it like a quarter of the way done, and then you have your family and friends come in, and you do what I did. It's a neat visual gag, and it's a lot of fun to do. Now, stay tuned for cartoon doodle tricks. Hi. Remember in the beginning of the show when I said we'll be doing name tunes? Not name that tune. This is not a music thing. Name tunes. Well, that's what we're going to be doing now. And some friends stop by because they love when I draw doodle tricks. So let's get started with the... Okay. From the name Sue, we'll draw Sue. A couple strokes like that. And let's see. We'll put a ponytail out of this one. And you know what? We'll put another ponytail coming out of this side. Okay, now for her face. Let's give her a turned up nose. Big smile. Well, Sue's a happy girl. Some eyes, eyebrows. That's coming together pretty good. And some ears. And let's see, okay, over here, let's have her waving. And over here, let's have her other arm down to her side. And let's turn this bottom part of the E into her dress. And we'll have one foot coming out this way, and the other one coming out this way, waving. And there she is. What do you think of that? You like that, folks?
Yeah.
I thought you liked that. Okay, let's do another one.
It looks
Another
like
name.
she's going like that.
She's giving you the okay sign. That's right. Let's do another one. This time, we'll use another name. And this time the name's going to be Art. A-R-T. Just like we're doing here, artwork. Okay. A-R-T. Let's see what we can do with this one. All right, over here, we'll put some eyes and a nose and some ears. And we've got Art's face coming out. Art's not too happy, is he? Well, the R makes him not too happy here. Let's have him crying. And we'll put his tie on out of the T. He's wearing one of those Western ties. And there you have it. There's Art. Like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And for the Blitz tip today, let's see what we've got. With practice, if you begin with practice, guess what? You'll always end with success. Like this fellow here running the race. He's running the race to win, and he will if he started with practice. I'm Bruce Blica saying thanks for being with me, and keep on cartooning, right?